In this unit, our topic is culture studies. We'll focus on intelligence across cultures. By the end of this unit, you will be able to understand intelligence across cultures, identify the global structure of an academic essay, and summarize the research based on keywords. What are the differences of intelligence across cultures? Let's go to the text.
Intelligence across cultures. In recent years, researchers have found that people in non-Western cultures often have ideas about intelligence that differ fundamentally from those that have shaped Western intelligence tests. Researchers of cultural differences in intelligence, however, face a major dilemma, namely, how to balance the desire to compare people from various cultures according to a standard measure with the need to assess people in the light of their own values and concepts. For instance, Richard Nisbett, co-director of the Culture and Cognition program at the University of Michigan, argues that East Asian and Western cultures have developed cognitive styles that differ in fundamental ways, including in how intelligence is understood. People in Western cultures, he suggests, tend to view intelligence as a means for individuals to devise categories and to engage in rational debate, while people in Eastern cultures see it as a way for members of a community to recognize contradiction and complexity and to play the social roles successfully. Other researchers have come to similar conclusions. In a study published in Intelligence, Volume 25, Number 1, Robert Sternberg, PhD, of Yale University, and Shi-Yin Yang of Chenan University in Taiwan, found that Chinese conceptions of intelligence emphasize understanding and relating to others, including knowing when to show and when not to show one's intelligence. Such differences between Eastern and Western views of intelligence are tied, says Nisbett, to differences in the basic cognitive processes of people in Eastern and Western cultures. The distinction between East Asia and the West is only one of many cultural distinctions that separate different ways of thinking about intelligence. Robert Serpell, who is returning this year to the University of Zambia, spent a number of years studying the concepts of intelligence in rural African communities. He found that people in some African communities, especially where Western schooling has not yet become common, tend to blur the Western distinction between intelligence and social competence. In rural Zambia, for instance, the concept of Nzulu includes both cleverness and responsibility. When rural parents in Africa talk about the intelligence of children, they prefer not to separate the cognitive speed and aspect of intelligence from the social responsibility aspect, says Serpell. Likewise, among the Luo people in rural Kenya, it has been found that ideas about intelligence consist of four broad concepts, namely Paro, or practical thinking, Winjo, or comprehension, Luro, which includes social qualities like respect, responsibility, and consideration, and Raiko, which largely corresponds to the Western idea of academic intelligence, but also includes specific skill. Only the fourth is correlated with traditional Western measures of intelligence. In another study in the same community, Sternberg and his collaborators found that children who score highly on a test of knowledge about medicinal herbs, a measure of practical intelligence, tend to score poorly on tests of academic intelligence. The results, published in the journal Intelligence, Volume 29, Number 5, suggest that practical and academic intelligence can develop independently or even in conflict with each other, and the values of a culture may shape the direction in which a child develops. They also support a number of other studies which suggest that people who are unable to solve complex problems in the abstract can often solve them when they are presented in a familiar context. Patricia Greenfield of the University of California, Los Angeles, and Ashley Maynard, now professor of psychology at the University of Hawaii, conducted studies of cognitive development among children in a Mayan village in Mexico using toy looms, spools of thread, and other materials drawn from the environment. The research suggested that the children's development can be validly compared to the progression described by Western theories of development, but only by using testing materials and experimental designs based on their own culture. The original hope of many cognitive psychologists was that a test that was absent of cultural bias could be developed. However, there seems to be an increasing weight of evidence to suggest that this is unlikely. Raven's progressive matrices, for example, is one of several nonverbal intelligence tests that were originally advertised as culture-free, but are now recognized as culturally loaded. Such nonverbal intelligence tests are based on cultural constructs, which may be ubiquitous in some cultures, but almost non-existent in others. It is doubtful whether cultural comparisons of concepts of intelligence will ever enable us to move towards creating a test which encompasses all aspects of intelligence as understood by all cultures. It seems even less likely that such a test could be totally free of cultural imbalance somewhere. The solution to a dilemma seems to lie more in accepting that cultural neutrality is unattainable, and that administering any valid intelligence test requires a deep familiarity with the relevant culture's values and practices.
Hello, this is Yang Fang from Tsinghua University. I work in the Department of Foreign Languages and Literatures. Today I've invited two of my students to come here to talk about intelligence across cultures.
Hello, this is Zuo Wan. I come from the Department of Foreign Language and Literatures.
Hello, this is Qin Zixiang. I also come from the Department of Foreign Language and Literature, and I majored in Japanese.
Great. Now let's look at the paragraph. In the first paragraph, we have a few sentences. Now, do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I don't quite understand the meaning of namely here, so what's the meaning of this word?
You see, this is a very long sentence.
Yes.
From namely, we are giving a very general picture at the very beginning, and then start with namely, you try to make it more concrete.
So just to separate two sentences?
Is one sentence. In the first part, you describe a general picture. In the second part, you give more detailed information. And
I also have a question about the word dilemma.
Dilemma means you have different situation. Sometimes you have two choices. Most of the time, you have more than two choices. So dilemma means it's very hard decision to make. In the second paragraph, we also have very long sentences. So, do you have any questions?
Yes, I noticed there are two confusing questions. Well, one is view intelligence as a mean form, and another is see it as a waveform. Well, are there any difference here?
Actually, means a way of doing things. They are very similar.
Yes, about this engage in, what does this actually mean?
Engaging means participate in or take part in. Now let's come to the third paragraph. Zixiao, do you have any questions?
Yes, about this cognitive, what does it mean?
Cognitive is one's mental process. You know, when we think, when we know things, when we inform others about a new information, all this process is called mental process. This is what we mean by cognitive. Now let's look at paragraph 4. We have a very long sentence here. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I don't quite understand the schooling here. I think school is a noun, but why here the author used schooling?
Schooling is also a noun. It refers to Western education. Actually, it means schools which adopt Western values in education.
So how about the word learn?
Learn is a verb which means it's not very clear. Here the writer wants to say the gap between the Western and Eastern idea about intelligence is difficult to recognize.
So they fail to find the differences between.
Right. They fail to find the difference between the two.
And I was wondering about the meaning of competence.
Competence means ability. It is like you are able to do something, we say learned competence, learned ability to learn a language. In the next paragraph, we also have a very long sentence here. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I found that the use of shape here is very different from that we have used before. So can you explain the use of shape to us?
Yes, shape is used as a verb here. It means decide and influence. This paragraph, there are 2 or 3 long sentences. Do you have any questions?
Yes, what about this an increasing weight of evidence means?
An increasing weight of evidence means more and more evidences. It has nothing to do with weight. And other difficulty in this paragraph?
Yes, I think one word is very difficult to understand. This word is ubiquitous. So what does the word mean?
Ubiquitous means everywhere.
And about construct, what about this?
Construct is a noun. It means concept. Do you have any other questions?
Yes, I think this is a very long and complicated sentence, and I find it difficult to get the point of it.
Do you mean the last sentence?
Yes.
Okay.
In this sentence, researches of cultural differences in intelligence refer to some researchers who study the cultural differences in intelligence, namely introduces a new sentence which gives more concrete idea of the study of cultural differences in intelligence. This sentence means that we are using different standard measures to judge people according to their values and concepts.
In this sentence, we notice that there is a contrast between Western cultures and Eastern cultures. View intelligence as a means for, see it as a way for. These 2 expressions are similar. A means for means a way of doing something. Engage in rational debate means to participate in a meaningful debate. In the last sentence, there are 2 verbs. One is to recognize contradiction and complexity. It means to realize the diversity and differences between community members from different cultures. Another verb is to play their social roles.
These differences in Eastern and Western views about intelligence are closely related to the basic cognitive processes of those in different cultures. Here, cognitive means relating to the mental process while we learn, know, and understand something.
In this sentence, Western schooling means education at school which adopts Western values. Blur means to fail to see the difference between intelligence and social competence. Competence means the ability to do something well.
In this sentence, practical intelligence and academic intelligence are a pair, which may develop together but separately, or may contrast strongly with each other.
In this sentence, a number of studies show that some people who cannot solve abstract problems can solve these problems if they are presented in a familiar context.
An increasing weight of evidence refers to more and more evidence.
Ubiquitous means everywhere, easily found. In this sentence, some nonverbal intelligence tests show that cultural constructs may exist in one culture but do not exist in another culture.
The best way to deal with this difficulty is that we must take cultural neutrality as the norm, and when we organize any intelligence test, we need to understand in depth the relevant culture and common practice and accepted values in these cultures.